thank you so much to Brand Innovators for bringing so many amazing marketers together. And I feel so grateful to be on this panel moderating with some very iconic brands. And what I think is cool about this panel is the difference in the brands and probably the approaches and wins and best practices that each of you have. So I'll do a little introduction. I'll start with myself because I feel a need to really explain a little bit about the Crazy Coupon Lady. I wasn't really going to sort of take too much time, and I won't. But for a show of hands, who knows who the Crazy Coupon Lady is? Not many, a few. Okay, so let me just quickly provide some context. There are actually two Crazy Coupon Ladies. Heather and Joni started the Crazy Coupon Lady, the company, 15 years ago. They are currently millennial moms. They started the company when they were in their early 20s. And what we essentially do is we connect CPGs with savvy shoppers who are looking for retail deals, brand innovation, and product news. We do this through our digital platform. We work with companies like P&G and Unilever and Kraft Heinz. Our audience is extremely purchase ready, as I mentioned, very engaged. So we are bringing that service to consumers and also partnering on sponsored media campaigns with different brands. So that is who we are. The reason we're called the Crazy Coupon Lady is our founders wrote a book and were considered Crazy Coupon Ladies when they started this company. So that's a little bit about who we are because it seems like there's a lot of confusion and question out there. But back to the most important thing here, our panelists. So first let me introduce Britt Holland. Britt is Director of Media for the NBA, which I feel like is a dream job. We would all agree. And then also Kate Gleysteen with PDC Brands, some iconic brands like Calgon and Cantu and Dr. Teal's. And I think that Kate's going to share some insight on one of her important brands, Cantu, and Nick Speaker, who's in the sort of financial insurance, financial planning industry, Prudential, very iconic. And I know that sort of tapping into that younger audience, younger financial planners is important. We talked a little bit about this last week when we met virtually. So Nick is going to share some insight around those efforts. So I have sort of three different questions. I know there's different ways of having these conversations, and I thought it might be easiest to kind of throw out a question to each of you, so you can sort of share whether it's your experience, case study information. But I'm going to start with Kate, and the personal care and wellness category is so competitive and value driven. It's actually a category that we carry and run campaigns for because people are always looking for deals and ways to save money. So how is PDC Brands using media innovation to strike a balance between sharing product benefits but also sharing the value?
Yeah, I think
I know, it's hot.
No, I think you hit it on the head. Like our portfolio is it's mostly wellness and beauty based, and that is those are categories where consumers are looking to save. In hair care, it really becomes value proposition very quickly, especially at our retailers. And then when it comes to self-care, which is really where our brands like Dr. Teal's and Calgon fall, that can go completely out the window for consumers. So I think one area that we're really focused on from a media perspective and a content perspective for our brands, especially since we have to be more nimble and strategically scrappy as a smaller company, we're really focused on our organic social efforts. And I'm sorry I missed the sessions this morning, but I heard there's a lot of talk in social listening. And that's something we've really focused on. Wellness has become a hot topic with consumers. Personal care is also up there, but I think wellness can look like a multitude of things. So consumers talk a lot about their wellness routines, what kind of supplements they're taking. Hair care is also in the category online as like a wellness routine depending on how much time they spend. So we're really listening to our consumers and what they're talking about and how they're talking about our brands and social media and trying to let that sink in for us as a brand in a lot of different ways, and also the content that we're creating and putting out into social media channels. One major example, I'd say, is for Cantu, as you said earlier. That's our heritage hair care brand. That's been around for a long time, and it had a bumpy 2020 and 2021. Consumers were very critical of the brand and some of our ingredients that were going into our hair care. There was a lot of scrutiny, and the brand really let that sink in and took it to heart and said, we're going to improve our products, and we reformulated our main hair care line and focused on a brand campaign that really emphasized that. So we had a campaign with Sky Jackson, who's a former Disney star, and we also work on a lot of organic content within social, within our TikTok, that just emphasizes, we heard you as consumers, and we've updated our products. They now contain organic shea and vitamin complexes, and we're seeing a really strong response, both in sales and also within the conversation around the brand in social media. So I think, for us, it's really important to hear the consumer and to just emphasize, we know that economically they might be looking at other options in hair care, but there's reasons to believe. And we have time for another quick example that's happening in real time. Dr. Teal's is one of our other fastest growing brands in our portfolio. And if you guys are also on social media, you've probably seen conversation around magnesium. I want to make magnesium's PR team because everybody's talking about magnesium and the benefits that you have. And it's great for us because our products for Dr. Teal's, Epsom salt, is powered by magnesium. And so we're now saying, this hasn't been a conversation in the past, but it relates to everything we've been talking to about our brands. So let's bring that to the forefront for consumers and let them know that there's a difference when you take a Dr. Teal's bath. You could buy private label, or you could have magnesium with Dr. Teal's and really feel the difference. So that's something, again, we're doing, you're going to see on shelves, and we're putting out there heavily in our social content.
And just a quick follow-up. So in terms of social channels, is there one that you've seen more success with?
Definitely TikTok, especially with our audiences. Cantu, it's skewing younger. So, and that's a consumer we really want to bring back to the fold. Again, it's a heritage hair care brand. So we have to become cool again to the younger generation. So.
I love that. Okay. All right, let's move on and talk about sports marketing. So, Britt, with the NBA's massive domestic fan base, and I know you talked about one of your KPIs being driving incremental viewership. So how are you taking innovation and innovative approaches to campaign creative? What are you doing in terms of emerging platforms? What new things are you trying to really deliver on that KPI?
Sure. So we talked on some earlier panels, talked about the importance of knowing your brand, but also knowing your audience. And so we've done a bunch of work against creating, specific assets that speak to specific types of audiences, but also marrying that with the right tactics on the right channels at the right time. It's a fun game to play. It's a sports metaphor, of course. But we've done a ton in the out-of-home space in recent seasons where what we call our tune-in campaigns, where we're driving incremental viewership to some of our biggest tentpole moments and games throughout the season, where on some sort of traditional digital platforms where you can do DCO and automate some of that decision tree with audience and creative on certain channels and certain platforms, we've been able to extend that in our out-of-home, which has been really cool to work with our vendors on ways to do that at scale in out-of-home, which has been really cool. So we've been able to sort of automate that process. And then when we're talking about playoffs and finals where teams are dropping out each week or as they're advancing, sort of getting a little bit more specific on which markets are live when throughout the tournament. And then just another example, also in the out-of-home space, and focusing on the right message for the right audiences, kind of meeting your fans or your consumers where they are at while they're not consuming, for me, our games or our product or using our products or buying your brands in stores. How else are they living their lives, and where can you meet them? Maybe it's at other events or just other moments in their life, and sort of customizing that experience as well. So we're always sort of top of mind.
So it's interesting to talk about TikTok, which I think so many of us are using to meet consumers where they are, but out of home for you is something that's really key. And I think I feel like we've seen a resurgence of out of home over the last few years. People are really embracing it more and sort of going back to it, right? Like it was always a core vehicle, if you will, and platform and channel, and I'm seeing more and more brands use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to look at out of home, like I mentioned, we've pushed a lot of our partners to kind of think outside the box with us, is kind of, especially digital out of home, is looking at it as almost an extension of our traditional digital campaigns. And if I can do it on this screen, why can't I do it on that big one up there? So that's been really fun.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Okay, so let's talk to Nick. So Nick, last week when we connected, you were talking about sort of what you're seeing with the financial planner target audience that you have and how they're kind of turning the reins over to this younger generation. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you're using different media innovation to reach that younger financial planner in a way that might be different than the traditional planning audience that you reach out to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. But really quickly, I just have to call out, Dr. Teal's is the best. That's the only thing my pregnant wife uses. I once got a different kind of soap, and I still haven't heard the end of it. So swear by the Dr. Teal's.
Thank you for that.
But no, not to echo the points that we've already spoken about, but I feel like TikTok is synonymous with being the environment of a younger audience. And in this current economic situation, that's certainly something at Prudential we believe in it and want to advocate, is reaching that younger audience and teaching financial literacy and really connecting them with the tools they need to really thrive in life and plan ahead for the future. So something we've done on the Prudential side is really tap into those younger environments. So we've leaned into TikTok more. And how do you make financial planning or asset management or retirement sound appealing or vibrant or sexy? It's not really something you can do, but we have leaned into TikTok. And especially in the past year, we've tried to just incorporate stories that can resonate stronger with that younger audience to make that more meaningful connection. So rather than just our generic messaging being, targeted to a younger age, we're trying to tailor it and gear it towards that younger audience. We're doing that through storytelling, through our content. We've supported and sponsored different athletes, including tennis players, NHL players, who are younger, and just really showcasing their story of rising fame and success, and how do they invest their money for the future? How do they plan for the future? How do they look at retirement at the very early days of their careers? Really stressing that planning for the future should start at an early age. So we want to make those meaningful connections because, maybe someone in their 20s might not fully realize that yet, but that's something that will matter to them. Another aspect beyond just different environments, we've definitely leaned more into experiential and trying to create different events to really cater to the younger audience. So something we've actually just recently did this past year at Prudential was we were a sponsor of the Bottle Rock Music Festival in Napa, which a music festival and wine, not something you might think with insurance or retirement or even Prudential, but it was a huge success. We were able to reach this younger audience in a place that's around a passion point of theirs, music, and really make that authentic connection. We did an entire luxury suite, hospitality suite, and it really saw strong results. We saw very positive sentiment coming out of that. But more importantly, honing in, leaning into the TikTok space, trying to reach that younger audience, we have more tailored messaging for the platform. So, you know your who, you know your where, but you want to make sure that how you reach them is important and authentic as well. So we actually just wrapped up a campaign across the Prudential portfolio of edutainment-focused content. So it was more education-focused content delivered in an entertaining way across TikTok. So this was more snackable, short content geared towards younger audiences, and it was a hit. We saw amazing results. We saw on TikTok, we saw about 2.5% lift. Similar versions we used across Meta saw almost 7% awareness lift. So major success. But we were just trying to reach that younger demographic with more engaging content, but not just the manner in which we're delivering it, but also the story we're trying to tell and letting them know that this is something that matters to them and connecting with them in that authentic way.
I love that. Well, say that again. What was that? Edutainment?
Edutainment. It's a tough one to say.
I'm writing it down and I'm gonna use it. I like it. So, our topic is how media innovation is shaping marketing's new era. And when you think of innovation and a topic that we heard in some earlier panels, this concept of risk-taking, right? So you think of innovation and you feel like there's probably some risk-taking involved in that. So I'm curious, are your organizations embracing risk for the sake of innovation? Are they risk adverse? Are they somewhere in between? It sounds like maybe partnering with Bottle Rock. Am I saying that right? I've always wanted to go to that, by the way, because I love wine and I love music. But maybe that was a risk, or maybe, I don't know. So I'm curious how risk has figured into the way that you go to market for your brands.
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually start with that Bottle Rock example. I think as a brand, you should always be doing, always be testing, always be learning, and always try and innovate. Not doing anything new is kind of the enemy of what you're trying to accomplish. Everyone's trying to innovate. Everyone's trying to jump on the next thing. I think we should all be constantly testing and learning. Certainly, Bottle Rock was a risk. I mean, an insurance company doing a sponsorship of a music and wine festival, on paper it shouldn't work, but it did. No, I think we should always be pushing the boundaries, and if you fail, you go back to the drawing board and start again. But not trying, I think, is when a brand starts to become stagnant.
I love that.
Do
you have an example?
No, I was just going to add that I agree. I think it's got to be a mix, of course. I think the MBA is, the innovation runs through the heart of the company and the brand, and I feel that in my role too. But there are obviously budget constraints, especially in our media and creative worlds. So, being able to have just some portion of your campaign or your strategy dedicated to testing and learning will keep that sort of innovative spirit throughout your process.
Yeah, and I could build on that too. I think for a smaller organization like PDC, we've been very open to taking risks and innovation and just really collaborating across our different disciplines to understand what consumers are looking for and what might work from an innovation standpoint. So again, social listening, understanding the trends that are happening in wellness and seeing if we can innovate in products there. We've tried a multitude of things and ingredients, and I think what's been really important from my standpoint and my role is we're now looking to focus more as an organization, kind of rein a little bit of that in, but taking more calculated risks and really understanding, kind of going in a little eyes wide open as to how risky is your risk, and from a media channel standpoint, we work with VaynerMedia. Gary Vaynerchuk is always saying, look for that kind of underpriced attention. And that's really where we've been able to kind of push our organization to say, here are channels and opportunities where consumers are going, but advertisers aren't following suit as much as the consumers. And that's oftentimes where you see some of these smaller brands, like our portfolio, really pop off, and because your messaging and the attention that you get from consumers really resonates. And it's something that we're also able to test more in social spaces like TikTok, where we can just put out more content, see what works, then amplify it more and more. So it's like a constant test and learn.
It's interesting because as I think about your brands, you know, you have a different situation here because you've got, you know, sort of Prudential. There are different products under your umbrella. The NBA is a big umbrella, right? And then you have many different brands with different personalities. It kind of reminds me of when we heard about Midol, you know, so maybe you have the opportunity with some of your smaller brands to do some testing and learning, and if it works, then you can expand that, take those learnings and expand to maybe some of your bigger brands or, you know, different brands, which is great and efficient, right? Great efficiency there. So I have no idea where we are on time. I feel like we're over. We only had 20 minutes. We had 3 people in 20 minutes, so I feel like it was going to be over. All right, well, thank you, everybody. I think this was really enlightening, compelling conversation. I love hearing about what has worked for you, how you're going to market, and how you're having success. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.